My dear friends, today I want to talk about something subtle but extremely powerful, something that often hides in plain sight: jealousy within the family. Yes, jealousy in the family. It is not easy to accept because we naturally expect love, support, and encouragement from those closest to us. But the reality is, sometimes the person we trust the most can become the quiet source of challenges in our life. And I have learned through stories, experiences, and reflections that a jealous family member can be far more dangerous than even the most openly hateful enemy. Think about it. When an enemy wishes you harm, you can see it coming. You can anticipate their moves. You can prepare yourself. But when jealousy comes from within your own circle, it is invisible. It comes in whispers, smiles, and subtle comments, making it difficult to recognize. You may think it is concern, advice, or even love, but the truth is, jealousy is often a quiet, persistent poison. And it affects not only your mind, but also your spirit, your confidence, and sometimes even your relationships with others. Let me share a story. There was a young man named Rohan. Bright, ambitious, and full of dreams, Rohan wanted to start his own business. He was focused, hardworking, and determined. But there was a cousin, Vikram, who felt threatened by his potential. Vikram never openly opposed Rohan. He smiled at him, gave advice, attended family gatherings, and even congratulated him on small successes. But secretly, he tried to sabotage Rohan's plans. He whispered doubts to others, exaggerated minor mistakes, and tried to plant seeds of distrust in the minds of family members. Rohan was confused. He didn't understand why someone so close to him, someone he loved and trusted, would act this way. It was a slow, quiet, invisible attack, but it was real. This, my friends, is why a jealous family member can be more dangerous than a known enemy. An enemy's attack is visible, you can prepare for it. But when the attack comes disguised as love, advice, or concern, it shakes you at your core. It makes you question your choices, your abilities, and sometimes even your worth. And that is why awareness is so important. We must recognize jealousy when it exists, not as personal hatred, but as a reflection of someone else's insecurity. In this speech, I will share stories, reflections, and lessons on how to understand, navigate, and rise above jealousy within families. I will show that while jealousy can be dangerous, it can also be managed with awareness, boundaries, and compassion. Because at the end of the day, protecting your peace and nurturing your growth is your highest responsibility, even if the threat comes from within the family you love the most. Friends, this is not about blaming anyone. It is about learning, reflecting, and growing. Let us open our hearts, observe our relationships carefully, and understand that sometimes the loudest danger does not come from outside, it comes from within. Friends, let us pause and reflect for a moment. Why is it that a jealous family member can cause more harm than a hateful enemy? To answer this, we need to look closely at human nature and the dynamics of relationships. An enemy's hatred is loud and obvious. You can see it, feel it, and prepare for it. You know the person dislikes you, and your mind can anticipate their actions. You may even pray for them, confront them, or create a strategy to protect yourself. There is a clarity to an enemy's intentions. But jealousy within a family is different. It is hidden. It is subtle. It creeps into your life like a quiet shadow, often unnoticed until it has already influenced the mind and heart. Imagine for a moment someone you love, a cousin, a sibling, a parent, who subtly envies your success. Every achievement you make, every recognition you receive, becomes a mirror reflecting what they lack. The strange part is that they may never express outright anger or hatred. They may smile at you, hug you, even congratulate you on the surface, but underneath there is a simmering storm. This storm whispers doubts into your mind, questions your decisions, and sometimes even manipulates others around you. The very people you expect to support you may unconsciously hinder your growth. And that is why jealousy in a family is far more dangerous than open hatred. Let me share a real-life example. There was a young woman named Anjali. She was brilliant, honest, and hardworking, and she had just begun to build her career in a competitive city. But her own sister, instead of celebrating her success, felt threatened. She never shouted at Anjali, never openly criticized her, but she would make subtle remarks like, "Don't you get too confident, you're not that special," or "Life can be harsh, don't think you're untouchable." At first, Anjali brushed it off as casual comments. But over time, these subtle words chipped away at her confidence. She started second-guessing herself and questioning her abilities. An enemy outside the family could never have caused this kind of quiet, persistent damage, because an external enemy cannot influence your self-perception as profoundly as someone you love. The danger of jealousy in a family lies not in loud attacks, but in subtle influence. It erodes trust, creates confusion, and leaves emotional scars that can last for years. It is a slow, invisible form of sabotage, often mixed with a veneer of love, which makes it difficult to confront. This is why awareness is critical. When you understand that jealousy is often rooted in insecurity, fear, or comparison, you no longer internalize it as your weakness. You begin to see it as a reflection of the other person's limitations rather than your own shortcomings. Friends, a hateful enemy attacks your body or your possessions, but jealousy attacks your mind, your heart, and your spirit. And that is why it is far more dangerous. Understanding this difference is the first step toward protecting yourself while maintaining love, empathy, and compassion. Awareness, boundaries, and self-respect are your shields, and your peace of mind is your strongest defense. So as we continue, remember this: the quiet storm within a family is far more powerful than the loud thunder outside. And recognizing it is the beginning of your journey to freedom, growth, and inner peace. Friends, now that we understand why jealousy in the family is more dangerous than a hateful enemy, let's explore why it happens in the first place. Understanding the psychology of jealousy can give us both clarity and compassion. Often, jealousy is not really about you. It's about the other person's insecurities, fears, and unmet expectations. It is a reflection of their own struggles, rather than a condemnation of your abilities or character. Humans have a natural tendency to compare themselves to others, especially to people they care about. We measure our worth consciously or unconsciously against those closest to us. That sibling who seems to achieve effortlessly may trigger insecurity in the other. The cousin whose life appears perfect can make someone question their own path. Even parents, in some subtle ways, can feel threatened by a child's independence, achievements, or confidence, because it reminds them of their own regrets or unrealized dreams. Jealousy, in its essence, is a mirror of insecurity. Let me share a story. There was a man named Samir who opened a small coaching center. It was modest at first, but he worked diligently and gained a reputation for quality teaching. However, his younger brother felt threatened by Samir's success. Instead of supporting him, the brother would point out mistakes, exaggerate small problems, and create narratives that made Samir doubt himself. At first, Samir was frustrated and angry, but as he reflected, he realized that his brother's jealousy came from fear. The fear of being left behind, the fear of not being appreciated, and the fear of seeing someone else succeed while he felt stagnant. Samir understood that it was not really about him. It was about the limitations of the other person. Psychologically, this awareness is powerful. When you recognize that jealousy is a reflection of someone else's insecurities, you stop internalizing it. You stop blaming yourself or feeling hurt unnecessarily. The energy that would have gone into frustration or resentment can now be used for your growth, your work, and your well-being. Awareness transforms a potential threat into an opportunity for wisdom. There is another aspect to consider. Often people disguise jealousy as concern or advice. You may hear, "I'm just saying this for your own good," or "I don't want you to get too proud." On the surface, it sounds caring, but underneath it may be a reflection of fear, comparison, or envy. Understanding this duality is crucial. It allows you to respond with clarity, compassion, and discernment, rather than reacting emotionally. Friends, jealousy is a part of human nature. It exists in every family, in every relationship. But awareness, understanding, and emotional intelligence are our tools to navigate it. Once we grasp the psychology behind it, we can protect our peace while still maintaining love. Because the key is not to fight the person, but to rise above the insecurity that fuels the jealousy. In life, the mind is your most valuable asset. A jealous family member may try to cloud it, but once you understand the psychology of jealousy, you are free. You can continue growing, loving, and shining without letting someone else's insecurity dim your light. Friends, now that we understand the subtle dangers and psychology of jealousy, the next question arises: how do we protect ourselves without creating conflict? How do we maintain peace, love, and integrity while navigating the silent storm of envy within our family? The answer lies in awareness, boundaries, and a focus on personal growth. Let me explain. First, awareness. The very first step is to recognize jealousy when it exists. Often, we misinterpret subtle acts or words as personal attacks. A remark like, "Don't get too confident, life can be harsh," may seem like concern, but it can also be envy disky. Used as advice, awareness means observing without immediately reacting emotionally. When you pause and reflect, you can see that the jealousy originates from someone else's insecurities, not from your deficiencies. Awareness gives you the power to respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively. Second, boundaries. Awareness alone is not enough. We also need to protect our emotional space. Setting boundaries is not about cutting people out of your life. It is about defining what behavior you will accept and what will affect you. If sharing every success invites envy or criticism, choose carefully what you share. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It is essential. Think of your emotional space as a sacred garden. You must protect it from weeds, and jealousy is a subtle weed that can grow if left unchecked. Boundaries allow love to exist without allowing negativity to take root. Third, focus on growth. The best way to counteract jealousy is through consistent excellence and integrity. Let your actions speak louder than words. When a family member feels threatened, it is often because they see your potential. Focus on your own journey. Cultivate your talents and nurture your values. Success achieved quietly, with humility, often reduces envy and gradually transforms relationships. I remember a young woman, Priya, who was a talented musician. Her cousin was initially jealous of her performances and subtle recognition. Priya, instead of responding with resentment, continued to practice diligently and perform with grace. Over time, the cousin's envy faded, replaced with genuine admiration. The quiet strength of consistency, focus, and love can transform even jealousy into respect. Finally, respond with compassion. Remember, jealousy is often rooted in fear, insecurity, and comparison. When you respond with empathy rather than anger, you protect your peace and also model emotional maturity. You are not condoning negative behavior, you are rising above it. This approach ensures that you do not burn bridges, maintain harmony, and continue to nurture love and trust in your family. Protecting yourself from jealousy is not about confrontation or avoidance. It is about awareness, boundaries, personal growth, and compassion. When you combine these, you can live freely, maintain your peace, and shine brightly even in the presence of envy. The jealous family member may try to cast a shadow, but your light will always overcome it. Remember, love with boundaries is not a contradiction, it is wisdom. Protect your heart, nurture your growth, and respond with clarity. In doing so, you create a life where jealousy cannot control your emotions or your journey. Friends, understanding jealousy is important, but seeing examples of triumph over it can inspire us to rise above. Let me share two real-life stories of individuals who faced family jealousy yet transformed it into opportunities for growth, patience, and deeper love. These stories are reminders that while jealousy can feel like a shadow, it cannot touch the inner light of someone committed to integrity and perseverance. First, consider the story of Rajesh. Rajesh was an ambitious young man who wanted to start his own technology company. He was intelligent, hardworking, and had a clear vision. But his older brother, instead of supporting him, initially felt jealous. He questioned Rajesh's decisions, subtly discouraged his plans, and made him doubt his own abilities. At first, Rajesh felt frustrated and hurt. He even considered stepping back because he didn't want conflict at home. But then he reflected. He realized that jealousy is a reflection of fear, not personal failure. Rajesh chose patience, humility, and consistent effort. He continued building his company, learning from mistakes and staying focused. Over time, his success became undeniable. The older brother began to admire him, slowly replaced envy with pride, and eventually became one of Rajesh's greatest supporters. Rajesh's story shows us that consistency, integrity, and patience can transform jealousy into respect. The second story is about Kavita, a young woman who married into a family where her mother-in-law was subtly envious of her abilities and confidence. The mother-in-law would make small comments comparing Kavita to her own daughters and pointing out flaws in her work. At first, Kavita felt hurt and frustrated, even questioning her self-worth. But instead of reacting with anger or resentment, Kavita chose empathy and calmness. She focused on her own growth, helped the family, and continued nurturing her relationships with love and understanding. Gradually, the mother-in-law's subtle jealousy transformed into admiration. Over time, a deep bond of mutual respect and love developed between them. Kavita's journey reminds us that responding with kindness and awareness, even in the face of envy, can create harmony and transform relationships. Friends, the lesson is clear. Jealousy is a reflection of insecurity, not a measure of your worth. Whether it comes from a sibling, cousin, or parent, it can be overcome with patience, awareness, and integrity. By focusing on your own growth, setting healthy boundaries, and responding with compassion, you can rise above envy and protect your peace. These stories also show us that triumph does not always mean confrontation. Triumph often comes quietly, through consistent effort, emotional intelligence, and the courage to maintain one's inner light. The jealous family member may initially create doubt or tension, but when we respond wisely, even they are transformed, and the relationship can grow stronger. So, my friends, remember this. Jealousy can appear as a shadow, but your patience, integrity, and compassion are the light that will always shine through. Life is not about avoiding envy. It's about learning to rise above it and letting your character speak louder than any whisper of jealousy. Friends, now let us take a moment to look beyond the stories, the psychology, and the strategies and focus on the spiritual dimension of jealousy in the family. Because while understanding and practical action are essential, the deepest protection comes from wisdom, inner peace, and spiritual strength. When we rise above envy, we not only protect ourselves, but also transform our relationships and our very experience of life. Spiritual teachers have always emphasized that our peace, joy, and growth should never depend on someone else's approval or love. The mind is our most valuable asset, and no one has the power to disturb it unless we allow it. A jealous family member may try to cloud your mind, manipulate your emotions, or even sow doubts about your worth, but their jealousy is their own issue, not yours. The moment we recognize this truth, we step into freedom. Let me illustrate this with a story. There was a man named Arjun, a talented painter, whose younger brother was jealous of his artistic abilities. The brother would make subtle remarks like, "You're lucky, you'll never know how hard the rest of us struggle," or "Your art is good, but don't think it makes you better than anyone else." Initially, Arjun was hurt. He questioned his talent and even avoided sharing his work. But one day he remembered a spiritual teaching: the light of your soul is not diminished by someone else's darkness. He realized that his brother's jealousy was a reflection of insecurity, not a judgment of his abilities. Arjunji chose to continue painting with joy, love, and dedication without allowing external envy to influence his peace. Over time, his brother's jealousy softened and the relationship improved naturally. Friends, the spiritual lesson here is profound. Jealousy loses its power the moment we anchor ourselves in awareness, inner strength, and love. When we focus on our dharma, our purpose, values, and growth, external envy cannot harm us. In fact, even if the jealous family member continues their behavior, it is their burden, not ours. By maintaining inner equanimity, we protect our mind, heart, and spirit. Another aspect of spiritual growth is compassion. Remember, Jealousy is rooted in fear, insecurity, and comparison. Responding with love, patience, and empathy is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. When we respond from a place of spiritual awareness, even envy is transformed. Relationships that seem strained can become nurturing, understanding, and deeply connected. Friends, life will always present challenges, even from those we love. But the inner power that comes from self-awareness, spiritual grounding, and compassion is unstoppable. A jealous family member may try to shake your roots, but your inner tree decides whether it will bend, break, or rise taller than ever. So let us choose to rise above jealousy. Let us choose peace over conflict, love over resentment, and wisdom over reaction. Because when we do, even the quietest envy cannot touch our soul, and our life becomes a beacon of light, inspiration, and joy for ourselves and those around us. Friends, as we come to the final part of this talk, let us pause and reflect on everything we have learned about jealousy within the family. We have explored its hidden dangers, understood its psychology, seen real-life stories of triumph, and even reflected spiritually on how to rise above it. Now it is time to bring all these lessons together and ask ourselves a vital question: how do we live gracefully in the presence of envy while protecting our peace, nurturing our relationships, and continuing to grow? The first principle of living with grace is awareness. Be conscious of the subtle signs of jealousy around you. Observe, but do not react impulsively. Recognize that jealousy is rarely personal. It is a reflection of someone else's insecurities, fears, and limitations. When we see this clearly, we can respond wisely instead of emotionally. Awareness gives us freedom. It allows us to choose how to act, how to speak, and how to maintain our inner calm. Second, practice boundaries with love. Boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines for protecting your energy. They allow you to love your family without letting envy control your emotions or decisions. Boundaries ensure that while you remain connected, you are not drained or diminished by subtle negativity. They allow love and compassion to flow, but without sacrificing your peace. Think of it like this: a tree can grow strong and healthy only if its roots are protected from rocks and toxins in the soil. Your mind and heart are the roots of your life. Protect them wisely. Third, focus on your growth and integrity. Let your actions, your work, and your character speak louder than words or criticism. Remember the stories of Rajesh, Kavita, Priya, and Arjun. In each case, the individuals chose to remain steadfast, patient, and committed to their path, allowing their consistent effort to transform envy into respect and admiration. When we focus on our own journey instead of reacting to jealousy, we maintain our dignity, amplify our inner strength, and inspire others without confrontation. Fourth, respond with compassion. Remember that jealousy is rooted in fear and insecurity. Responding with patience, empathy, and understanding is the highest form of wisdom. This does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means rising above negativity while maintaining love and clarity. Compassion transforms relationships and elevates our own heart. Finally, anchor yourself in inner peace. Spiritual awareness teaches us that our light cannot be dimmed by someone else's shadow. A jealous family member may create tension, but only you can allow it to affect your mind and spirit. Choose freedom, choose growth, choose love. When you do, even envy cannot touch your soul. Friends, life will always bring challenges, and jealousy is one of them. But the grace with which we respond, the love we nurture, and the clarity we maintain define the quality of our relationships and the strength of our character. So, as you leave today, remember this: protect your heart, rise above envy, focus on your light, and let your actions speak louder than any whispers of jealousy. Live with grace, my friends, and you will find that no shadow, no matter how subtle, can ever dim the brilliance of a life committed to love, integrity, and wisdom. Thank you.